Hello and welcome everyone, my name is Captain Frost, and today with our build watch series we're gonna be looking at a Spark Occultist build that utilizes ashes, that utilizes a unique amulet called Ashes of the Stars that uses not regular spark but phantasmal spark that gives us a lightning damage conversion to chaos, and that is going to be our primary way how are we dealing damage in the first place with this build. And we're going to be looking at the build, we're going to be describing all the things that are going on with it. I'm gonna try to help you understand how it works, why it's so bad, why is it so powerful, but you need to understand that this build is very expensive, and even in order for it to work how it should, you will definitely need to have a bunch of investment, because both the phantasmal version of the spell itself costs a bunch, unique amulet costs as much, there's a bunch of other uniques and quite pricey items that are present in this build that you probably need in order to have as much damage as possible. But with that in the way, you will have a very hardly defended and you will have a very defensive character. You will have a bunch of damage, just tons of damage to be honest, and you will have great clear. You will have this character is gonna be very strong, but it still needs ton of investment for it in order for it to work. If you don't want to invest as much, you probably can use just regular elemental spark with some conversions to cold. There are other options that you don't really need as many expensive items as in this build. And probably you can't really league start with the chaos version of Spark in mind, because you definitely wouldn't have enough resources in order to deal all this chaos damage and in order to have all the other defensive layers in place and enough offense in order to deal with all the content in the game. And the last disclaimer here will be that this particular character uses Mage Blood, and Mage Blood gives it just enormous amounts of defense. Even though you can live without it, you cannot use Mage Blood itself. It's not essential for the skill combination to work. It's just a very good accelerator of your character. It's everybody knows that it's a hella powerful item, and we're using it in this build. So I guess now we're gonna look at our talent tree, we're gonna look at jewels that we're using, then we're gonna go for skills and items, and probably there's really no need for us to disclose the cheap alternatives that you can get for some of the items that are presented in this build, because it wouldn't work without a significant amount of investment in the character. The main, let's go a bit about the main mechanics that are going around, and then we will go for the tree itself. So as you can see, Spark here, it has alternative quality as Phantasmal. So at 20%, it gives 40% of lightning damage converted to chaos damage. And with our unique amulet, Ashes of the Stars, we have plus 30% to quality of all skill gems, which here gives us 50% quality, and with 50% quality we do have 100% of lightning damage conversion to chaos damage, which enables us to deal this enormous amounts of damage. And as you can see, it's not so not everything is so clear and easy with this build as it can possibly be. You can probably think to yourself that Spark should be quite easy, but we're not dealing even the hit damage. We're dealing a bunch of poisons, chaos damage is, that's why we need chaos damage on Spark, because Spark can apply poisons many times to the enemy, because it just because of how the skill works, and this way you do have good, very good clear speed and very good boss damage, especially in closed maps, in closed corridors and stuff. So yeah, here we do have we do need to have all the poison chance. We are ramping up our ailment damage. Yeah, and Spark needs this 100% conversion because that's where your main damage will go. So yeah, that's your like main points of the build. And why it works. Everything else is a bit secondary. We do have chaos inoculation here, so we're immune to chaos damage, and with our chest piece, Incandescent Heart, we're converting some of elemental damage to be taken as chaos damage instead, because we're immune to that, and this way it's basically 25% less damage taken, less elemental damage taken. Yeah, we are using some other mechanics that give us an ability to increase our maximum resistances up to 85%, which is just massive against elemental damage, and especially with all these conversions of your damage taken from hits with being elemental converted to chaos. It smoothes out our defenses even more. As you can see here, we have 290,000 effective hit pool, and we have something close to 15 million DPS, and that's not even doing anything in configuration. So yeah, most of the things are not up in here, and you can see here it's against Guardian and Pinnacle bosses. So yeah, let's go to our talent tree, see what we're taking here. So we're going as fast as possible to get to the main parts that we want for our build, so that's why we're taking some intelligence, which is still not useless to us at all. Yeah, we're not taking all the big nodes that are close to the witch's talent tree start. And by the way, probably we need to stop at Occultist first and to look what we're taking here. So we're going for Withering Presence, we're going for Void Beacon, and even though this plus 60% to chaos resistance do basically nothing for us because we are immune to chaos damage, we do have here more chaos damage. We do have here Wither, which is these are the main points why we are taking these points. And here we have minus chaos resist additionally, Profane Bloom, just additional explosions, and Unholy Authority for us to be able to apply additional curse. So yeah, that's your Occultist setup. And then here we're just traveling a bunch. Here we're taking Chaos Inoculation. By the way, you can't really do that on your character as you're leveling up, because you don't have enough defenses. Or maybe if you have perfect leveling gear, but probably not. Probably do the resetup of existing character that was playing on something else into this. And yeah, you need a significant investment, so I don't think that a bunch of regret orbs are going to be a problem. So yeah, here on top, at the top, we're getting ourselves a cluster jewel slot. We're getting to chaos inoculation, that is one of our main mechanics. We're immune to chaos damage, but our maximum life is only 1. Then we're taking a bunch of reservation that is available here for us, and additional damage increase for poison, some chance to poison with spell damage. Yeah, and this and again, just more chaos, just more poison stuff, and poisons you inflict deal additional damage in mastery. Then with our cluster jewel, we're just going for as much regular small nodes as possible, and these nodes, they give us a bunch of attributes, lightning damage, which still scales how the damage conversion works. So you do want increases to lightning damage that will then be converted and multiplied by increases to chaos damage or to poison damage. So yeah, this is what we have here. We have a bunch of flat energy shield and some cast speed as well. We do have Grand Spectrums. We do have Grand Spectrum that, as you can see here, is corrupted with implicit that corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you, and it gives you elemental damage per each Grand Spectrum. Then we have +1 to minimum endurance charges, And then it's Militant Faith, that's the other one as well. So yeah, and the third, our third Grand Spectrum is +1 to minimum frenzy charges for us to have constant minimum power charges being frenzy and endurance charges being at maximum with our Grand Spectrum jewel setup. As our medium jewel, we're taking here chaos damage and additional chance to poison on hit with spell damage nodes. But that's basically, yeah, that's your chaos damage over time medium cluster jewel type. Then we're traveling to the bottom. We're getting as much mana reservation as possible because that's gonna be essential for us. We're gonna want to use as much auras as we possibly can. Then we're going here for a intuitive leap. So passives in radius can be allocated without being connected to your tree, and we're saving a bunch of points for us here with taking charisma and reservation efficiency. Charisma is very powerful. It gives us 16%, and here we have 8%, so it's 24% in total, which is very much worth all the travel nodes that we're using here. Then with this center part, we're getting some energy shield. As you can see, we're not taking any life nodes. Energy shield is vital for us. These mana nodes are good because they reduce your mana cost of skills, and as you can see here, our spark costs only 1 mana, but that's not only because of our talents, that's because of us having mage blood, and we do have some broken flasks that reduce cost of mana, and with enkindling orbs, their effectiveness is increased by 70 or something percent, and we have just a bunch of mana reduced percentage, which then scales our mana cost for the spark to being completely just unreasonably low, I guess. So yeah, then we're going for our mana mastery, which increases mana reservation efficiency of skills. Again, 12%, it's massive, and we do have these two very useful skills that reduce mana cost of skills. Even though the increases to mana themselves, we're not really interested in them. We're not really interested in like mana regeneration as well that much. It's just mana cost of skills and this mastery here. Then there's an interesting combo. We're using Militant Faith. So and on every single talent that is in this big range of this Militant Faith, we have some +2 devotion. And these +2 devotions, they give us something that is on the Militant Faith. So 4% increased elemental damage per 10 devotion, and +1% increased effect of non-curse auras per 10 devotion as well. Oh, no, wait a second. So yeah, and as you can see here, we're getting +10 devotion from one regular talents. Here that are just being replaced, and with some other ones we do still have their regular effects, and we do have some additional devotion. So what's the interesting interaction between these things? We do have Unnatural Instinct overlapping with it, and with Unnatural Instinct it allocates small passive skills in radius. Oh no, I don't mean that. So allocated. So talent points like this, small allocated points, passive skills in radius grant nothing, and all bonuses from unallocated small passive skills in radius we are granting by this jewel, which means that all these things that give us some cast speed, they give us some area of effect, they give us like mana and other thing that we don't really need, physical damage, we do have a devotion on them from the Militant Faith, and then we're getting all these devotion bonuses from these talent points being unallocated through the Unnatural Instinct, and that's a very good synergy here as well. Then we have our Watcher's Eye, which gives us some energy shield per enemy hit while affected by discipline, which is massive. That's a way for you to kinda regenerate or just recover your energy shield with just hitting an enemies. That's a flat amount with your Spark, it's gonna work pretty well, especially when you're dealing with AoE, with big numbers of enemies, and unaffected by bleeding while affected by malevolence. Yeah, very good to be immune to any ailments as well. Then we're traveling here farther to the north of the tree. We're getting elemental overload, and it's more elemental damage. Still works with how conversion works, and more elemental damage means more poison damage for us as well. Then some additional damage over time multiplier increases, some additional like chance to block, and a bit of energy shield as well. Then we're getting this cluster jewel node, and again more mana reservation efficiency. So as you can see, we're taking all the possible mana reservation efficiency that we can get on this tree. It's a node here, it's a node here. I don't mean even just node, it's a cluster here, cluster there, this here on bottom, and this big cluster that is kind of far from where we were starting. And then we're again using similar large cluster jewel that gives us just a bunch of stats from this small nodes. So it's completely ramped up with the small nodes rather than big nodes, and instead of being instead of it being like 6 or 7 or 8 or just as small number as possible of this small talents, we do have a bunch of them. It's like 12 passive skills. Then we're using medium cluster jewels again with cast damage over time in here. As you can see here, again, pretty well rolled, and some maximum energy shield, some additional resistances, and other medium cluster jewel is as well with cast damage over time. We see here chance to poison on hit with spell damage, which is essential for us for our cast damage to have reliable chance to poison enemies on hit, because poison's our main damage, especially against single target. Some additional damage. Here we do have our Grand Spectrum that we've already saw, and with small cluster jewel, it is a increased mana reservation efficiency. And again, you want to roll this as high as possible with just your you want your small nodes to be as effective as possible, and you want them as many as possible as well. And here we have plus 6% on all three of them. And by the way, this 6%, it's 4% baseline, and then it is increased by 30% with the good mod. And then we have some fire resist, some attributes, and maximum life that doesn't do us basically anything, doesn't give us basically anything. Yeah, and this is mostly it. Oh yeah, we do have Melting of Flesh. We do have -70 to all elemental resistances, -4 to all maximum elemental resistances, but elemental resistances are kept by your highest maximum elemental resistance instead, which means that you will have just like this giant -70 to all elemental resistances that will force you to get more of LRS on stats on your gear. But here Mage Blood definitely helps us as well, because we do have on one of our flasks, as you can see here on our silver flask, we have additional elemental resistances during effect, and it has increased effect as well. So yeah, it is insane how well you can roll your character with all this intricate mechanics, with all these things bunched up one on top of another, and this is how you can help yourself to get all these resistances back. And with your maximum resistances, it's way easier to get just a big number, like here 85%. Because we're using our Aegis Aurora, it gives us +5 to maximum cold resistance, and you want to just increase your maximum cold res as high as possible for us to have this big amount of max res, this big max res on all other resistances as well, because it will be redirected to every other resistances from your maximum, from your highest max LRS. So yeah, that's kinda it with the talent tree. And as you can see here, we do have some additional chaos damage over time multiplier with our intuitive leap. Too bad it doesn't have an ability to jump a little bit further to the top. So yeah, that's your talents, that's your jewels. Now with skills, with our main link being Phantasmal Spark. You can see here, yeah, it's just like we've already talked about it. It's chaos damage, which was converted from lightning damage. Then we have awakened deadly ailments. You're not really interested that much with damage and with hits. You're interested with damage with ailments. Some early focus. With early focus, it's interesting and it's fun because you cannot inflict elemental ailments, and poison is not elemental ailment. It's just an irregular ailment, and you still can poison with your skill, benefiting from 39% more elemental damage, increased damage, and all the plus ones from awakened gem. Then we have spell echo, which is you want as many sparks going on around as possible. And your spell echo is your damage multiplier in that sense. Unbound ailments, again, increased duration of ailments, so increasing duration of poison it is as well your damage multiplier, just as you having like more damage, because you can stack poisons infinitely, and if they are lasting longer, they will deal more damage. And again, a bit of a more damage multipliers as well. And inspiration 4, again, your reduced mana cost of skill, in order for it to cost only 1 mana, in order for us to being able to reserve so much mana and have only 1% of our mana unreserved, and still being able to use Spark and having even like 49 mana regen is gonna be insane if your main spell costs only 1. Then we do have temporal chains on our gloves, so that's one of our curses. Then we have despair that is slotted in our ring, and this will come later when we'll look at our items. We do have a bunch of reservation skills. It's kind of jaw-dropping in terms of how many of them are here, and we do use Enlighten level 4, which again, that's very expensive. So discipline, of course, it's your main it's one of your main defensive auras that just give you this your energy shield. Then we have Divergent summon Skitter bots. With Diversion, minions have 10% increased effect of non-damaging ailments on enemies. This one is and again with some additional stuff in here, as you can see with our rings. We're using Profane Proxy. So this is one with a socket. +3 to level of socketed curse gems, which is our despair. Then some resistances, and as we can see here, your chilling Skitterbot aura applies socketed hex curse instead. You probably want your chilling one because from shocking you're getting additional damage, and that's why it is in the left socket here as well. And it is socketed with despair. Your Skitterbots, they are applying curse and they are applying shock, which with this divergent quality, it's gonna be your shock is gonna be even increased even more with its effect, and it will be just a more multiplier damage with like some percentages. Then we're using Herald of Agony. It gives us buff grants chance to poison on hit. Our Herald of Agony, it's basically, and it's again diversion quality. Buff grants additional 20% chance to poison on hit. So this is what are we using with our first part of the reservation. Then with second part, it's Purity of Ice, and it's again Enlighten level 4, and here we have +1 level. Because it is socketed in our gloves, which are, we need to jump here and there, but I don't want to do that too much, but we do have here +1 to levels. So that's gonna be our Determination, one of our main defensive auras, Malevolence, one of our damaging auras, and Purity of Ice. that again gives us additional maximum cold res. And with that we can achieve our 85% cold res max, which will then be transferred to other elemental resistances. And it gives you just additional ability to cover some cold resistance as well, so that your gear wouldn't be as hardly impacted by the need of finding more res. Then with our molten shell, and we see here, as you can see, again, Phantasmal Aura grants 5% increased attack and cast speed from Smite, and Smite again, Aura grants you some additional lightning damage, added lightning damage, and it has increased duration, so that you don't really need to proc your Smite as often. And this aura will again give you lightning damage that will then be converted to chaos damage, and that will then just not shock but poison enemies. And we have more molten shell here. We will press it if we need additional health buffer. And with our enormous amounts of armor, it will grant us maximum bonus from that you can get from molten shell. Then we have our Frostblink, Haste, and Divine Blessing. Here we do have our Frostblink with Inspiration, so that it, as we can see here, where it is, it's here. So yeah, your mana cost for Frostblink is gonna be 0. That's why you can use it without any problems. And Inspiration as well works on your Divine Blessed Haste with, again, let's go here. Can we even see the haste? I don't really know if I can target it in here, to be honest. But yeah, the main thing is probably it should have said the reservation here instead. But yeah, you can use your haste as well without any cost with your Divine Blessing, and have additional aura on top of you with your like cooldown like skill. So yeah, as you can see here, maybe here it's gonna be more here it still says about the reservation. So yeah, and with Inspiration, supported skills have minus 10% reduced, has 10% reduced mana cost, and that's why with our Spark we do have some costs, but still, because within the Spark it's still divergent here as well. So yeah, with our haste, then we can use it as our temporary buff. And then we have some additional reservation. We have Defiance Banner, we do have Blood and Sand, and we do have Tempest Shield. So with Blood and Sand being anomalous, it's gonna be your projectile speed, while in Sand stance, which is definitely good for your sparks. And with Tempest Shield, you're just gonna have additional immunity to shock. You're gonna have a chance to block spell damage as well. So yeah, that's gonna be pretty nice. And then lastly, with our equipment, we're gonna quickly roll through it. So with your weapons, you see here that we're using a scepter that gives us spell damage over time multiplier, some flat lightning damage to spells. It gives us again +1 to level of all lightning spell skill gems, which is very powerful, and chaos damage over time multiplier. Aegis Aurora that we've already talked about, it has high chance to block. It gives us some additional elemental resistances. It gives us a bunch of armor and energy shield. You're recovering energy shield equal to % of your armor when you block, and that's very good as well, because that's just gonna be a massive amount. Then with it increases a bit of our elemental damage, and it has our crucial +5 to maximum cold resistance. Then with our helmet, we're using here energy shield base, which is obvious. You want to have as much of your HP energy shield bar as possible, because it will multiply with all your other defensive layers. Very, very good. So you want here energy shield, as much of energy shield as possible, some additional mana reservation efficiency, your spark enchant, and then duration of ailments while you're focused. It's more of a single target damage again, and some mana reservation additionally. So yeah, just a bunch of mana reservation in order to squeeze everything that we have squeezed here. Then with body armor, it's incandescent heart. Life that it gives, it's not relevant for us. It's a bunch of armor, a bunch of energy shield, plus 2 level of socketed projectile gems. Again, some elemental damage from hits as chaos damage that is mitigated completely. Light radius is based on energy shield instead of life as well. Yeah, and then with our gloves, it's Hands of the High Templar. This is your gloves that you can corrupt many times in order to get good corrupts, and there is a very, very good corrupts in here. So it's +1 to level, it's +2 to level of socketed aura gems, and it gives us curse enemies with temporal chains on hit, and that's a very, very reliable way for us to defend ourselves with temporal chains from the enemies. And temporal chains are effectively our DPS multiplier, because our poisons, they have duration, and enemy that are cursed with temporal chains have their debuffs going off slower on them, so that this way temporal chains, they are not really only defensive option, they are one of the biggest damage multipliers that you can possibly get, and this is just amazing for us. It gives a bit of resistances as well, and a bit of armor with energy shield. With boots, again, you do see here projectile spears 5 additional targets. There's a bunch of other mods that you can get here. Some movement speed, avoid being chilled, that's good against chilled ground and stuff. Some resistances, and chance to suppress spell damage if possible as well. Then with our unique amulet, it's Ashes of the Stars. It gives you reservation efficiency, it gives you quality that we need for our main socket. Then it gives us +1 to level of all skill gems, which is very good. And it allocates Champion of the Cause, talent anointment on our tree. Then with rings, we've already saw Profane Proxy. That's your skitter bots applying curse instead of chills. And with other ring, we do have some stats here, some chaos damage, spell damage, some mana as well, but mana probably it's not the most needed thing here as well. But again, chaos damage, spell damage, some stats, and some resistances. With belt, it's a mage blood. Your flasks are always up. Your 4 magic utility flasks are constantly up. You cannot use them, which is a saving grace in terms of gameplay experience, and is a very powerful way for you to scale your defenses and different things in your build as well. So then we have Aziri's Promise, which we will use manually. That gives just us a bunch of additional damage. It will be used when charges full. So manually, I mean, we're not. You cannot use it through the Mage Blood. And then with our regular flasks, we have Silver Flask with, again, it's enkindled, it's increased effect, but it can't get charges while it's in effect. But with Mage Blood, you're not really interested in getting charges. It has all the reduced duration stuff, but we don't really care about it. What it do have is increased effect and additional elemental resistances that will cover your LRS very, very hard. It has this increased effect on 2 places, one from Enkindling Orb and second one just on the flask itself, and it has Onslaught. Then we do have our Granite Flask that gives us a bunch of armor, again, more additional increases to armor, and it's just, that's it, that's your flask. Then we do have Quicksilver Flask, increases our movement speed, increases our cast speed, and again has increased effect. And with Sulfur Flask that we're using here, it is your reduced mana cost of skills with increased effect as much as possible, and just some increased damage as well. So yeah, that is basically the setup for it. It's very expensive, it is very powerful, it is very fast, and it's very reliable. This video was very long. Thank you for watching. If you're enjoying content like this, then definitely subscribe to the channel, as it's gonna be way more content in the future. Hope you're having a good time. Goodbye.